school may say, hey, this guy's a 3.5 up. We can afford to, for each one of those tenths of GPA, we can give you another $2,000 in scholarship academic. And now baseball can come in and give you a 25-30%, and we can make this manageable.
Absolutely.
You make it so much easier on it, and you hamstring yourself. If starting as a freshman, that's when it always happens. Freshman to sophomore, you tank and then try to pick it up, and you're rolling in with a 2.8, 3.0 because you slacked off those first few years.
This is Coach Matt McGowan with the Baseball Playground. We have a huge, influential guest, Dave Webb, one of the winningest coaches with Team USA. He's also in charge of the task force for the 17U week this year in Arizona. So excited to have him. Also, not to mention, he's been a coach at Corona del Sol in Tempe, Arizona, and you've won the state. You've done everything, right? You've been a part of everything. You've done everything. We're so excited you're here. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us about your journey. How did you get into baseball? How did you start this path?
Wow, baseball specific. I don't know if I had a choice. My dad was a coach for 35 years, high school coach in the Arizona State Baseball Hall of Fame for coaches. So I grew up on a baseball field. I was a baseball rat. I ended up going out of high school after playing for him. I went to Scottsdale Community College. I played a couple of years there, and then I went to Grand Canyon in the years. The first time Grand Canyon was Division I in the early 90s. I went there and played for a couple of years, and never thought I was going to be a coach, to be honest. Even though I grew up on it, I love it. It's a huge part of who I am as a kid. I was like, my brothers went the business route. Maybe I'm going to do that. I got about 2 years in, did some volunteering over the summer at Corona, and just was like, I think I found my calling. It was weird how it happened. Changed my major and decided to do. I was paranoid that I was going to be the teaching part of it. And now it's just the easiest thing in the world for me to stand up in front of people and talk. And it's funny because I was kind of shy as a kid. But I'm a teacher. I'm a high school, baseball coach. I absolutely love it. And I wouldn't do anything else. I love the classroom. I love the baseball field, just an extension of the classroom. And the rest is history. I've had some amazing opportunities from that point on, yeah.
I feel you're like so many coaches that teach, because I also coach and teach. I had a life before that. I worked for Showtime Networks and did some really cool shows, and that was kind of my journey at one point, and then decided that wasn't really my calling, and similar to you, and I'm gonna coach and teach, but I feel like we're kind of the same person. I coach and then I teach, right?
Yeah.
Like I want to be a baseball coach, and teaching is just happens to be a part of it. So
I love it. I love it. I actually teach, believe it or not. I've taught American history for 25 years, but in the last 6 years, I actually started an elective. It's called Pop Culture in America.
I love it.
So like 3-4 hours a day, I'm teaching pop culture. Are you kidding me?
That's awesome.
I mean, it's amazing.
That's awesome. I teach PE, so
there
it's not we're not trying to work too hard. Semi-retired, is what I say.
Kids
so
need PE too.
Absolutely, 100%,
sure.
especially nowadays.
Yes, they do.
With how obesity is going.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, getting off topic, Dave, tell us. You're part of the USA Baseball. You've been doing it for a long time. I believe. Are you the winningest coach right now?
I don't know.
39-1 is what I read.
I have no.
If you're not, you're probably 39-1. You're 39-1. All right,
Okay.
and you have a bunch of gold medals, and you've done some amazing things. How did that part start?
Actually, a guy I coached with was doing some stuff with USA Baseball, and USA Baseball used to have its home down in Tucson. And even in Arizona, we didn't know much about it. It was so small. It was such a small microcosm. And somehow the Olympic teams came out of that. And there was this thing called Junior Olympic, which was played in Joplin, Missouri. And one year they decided to have a thing called the 16U West Championships. And I think it was 1998. And I went down there with a coach who was going down there to work. And he said, hey, they need scorekeepers. So I was an assistant at the time. And I'm like, hey, yeah, they'll pay you some money each time scorekeeping. And it was a grind, 9, 12, 3, 6, 9 games, like 5 days a week. I mean, it was long, but I loved being a part of it. And I just kept coming back and doing that and kind of worked up the scales. I became a head coach. And it was a young guy who worked for USA at the time named Rick Riccobono, and they were starting the 14U national program. And I had worked up to kind of helping on task force as a young head coach. And he said, hey, I want you to help start the 14U program. So I jumped on board and been on 5 national teams.
Amazing.
Yeah, last one was in 2013. So
That's awesome. And you
Yeah.
won.
yes,
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's amazing. We hear so many people that come to this event, the dreaded task force, right? Like, oh my
Right.
gosh, they make your fate, or they eliminate you right away.
Right.
Talk to us about what the task force does, and you're identifying the top 1%, but what are you looking for that separates those players?
Right. And you got to understand, too, it's like, I mean, I'm coming from a high school coach in Arizona, and a huge part of this tournament comes from California. It's such a hotbed of talent. And so many teams in this West event come from California. So a lot of these kids I haven't seen. I don't go and study meticulously about, perfect game lists or PBR lists and rankings and stuff like that. We'll mention them sometimes, but a lot of times it really comes down to when you come to an event like this, you have to perform. And that's what they kind of miss. They're like, hey, I'm the second best shortstop in California, and that's great. But if you come here and in front of our eyes, you basically take 5 days off and
Yeah.
you don't perform, and you have maybe a terrible week or maybe just a very average week and someone else doesn't. That's kind of the cool thing is a lot of the guys that come here, even though I don't think that's what's going on in back channels, they think we know everything. I'm going from a fresh perspective.
Yeah.
And you step up and you get on our radar and we keep watching you throughout the week and you have a great week, you have a great chance. You really do. And I know they don't want to believe it happens like that, but it does.
So you end up getting an invite to go to to be a part of the USA team. You
Uh-huh.
still, that doesn't mean that you're on the team. You have to go to North Carolina. Then it's a bunch of groups of national championships from North Carolina, Florida, and Arizona
Exactly.
meet up. Talk to us about that process.
So they kind of changed it now. It used to be Florida, but so much rain and so many games got put behind. I think teams started dropping out because of just the
Yeah.
continuity of it. They couldn't keep that going because of the rain in Florida at that time. So they moved it to Cary. At the 17U level, which I'm working this year, for instance, last week I was in North Carolina. They have 4 main fields there, so they don't have huge complexes like they do out here in
Yeah.
Arizona. So they picked really 16 really, really talented teams. It's an invite-only event. You go, they're full of SEC commits. I mean, just unbelievable talent.
Yeah.
They play through that tournament, throughout the tournament, kind of like this one. After the first 3 days, we all sit down and we've been kind of marking off kids, and we're looking mostly for 2025 kids.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much coaches have told parents that they're like, why aren't they talking to Bobby, who's a 24? He's a 24, so we don't have eyes on him. He's just not our age right now that we need to be looking for. And in this event, we try to find those 25s. Last week and this week, we then go into midweek and we do a workout, which we'll do today at 5. We give them a letter and say, hey, this is by no means an invitation to play on the team or anything. We just want to see you, like in a more intimate setting. So today we'll have a workout at 5. We'll go out there. We'll do mostly ground balls, try to keep the throws down because arms, it's a long week.
Absolutely.
But we'll work some footwork in the outfield, infield, let them swing the bat a little bit, maybe get some feedback there, and then follow them these last couple of days. From this, then... when we whittle it down and then we give our opinions, our write-ups, our scouting reports to the kind of higher ups at 17U and the director of 18U, they'll draw out I'm not really sure how many guys are invited to what's called NTDP, National Team Development Program, but it's late July. Those guys that get picked will come. There's a fair amount of them. Mm-hmm. And they'll separate them into teams, and really they function almost as a national team.
Yeah.
They go there so we can get more eyes on them. Scouts will show up and watch, both college and pro. They get all kinds of little conferences with guys who talk to them about what an advisor is, an agent, how to budget your money. I mean, they get all kinds of little deals like that. They get all the USA gear, and they compete against the best.
That's like the Stars and Stripes games and things like that.
Yes,
Correct?
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's in lieu of the fact that, when I first started, there was only a 16-18 college team, and then it jumps up to what became Olympic or World Baseball Classic, right?
Yeah.
So that went on, and in the early 2000 teens, the WBSC changed it, and they changed the age groups.
Yeah.
So I think it was 2013, because that was the year I took the 12s for the first year. And they said no more 16s and no more 14s. We're going to make a 15 age group and a 12. So now the ages are, there's a 12U, there's a 15U, there's an 18U, then you go collegiate teams, and then up. So
Yeah.
it leaves kind of a gap in that 16, 17 area. And, we want to be prepared for what lies ahead for the 18s. So that's why they created this national team development. So at 16, 17, we can see those kids and say, hey, that's a kid last year that really performed. He's really on our radar. Went back to North Carolina, performed. Let's go ahead and keep eyes on him as he hopefully tries to make that PDP league.
Yeah.
Which is huge. It's like
Absolutely.
to me, it's the major leagues of high school. It is. If you're making that, you're a big leaguer in high school playing for 12 days. I think it starts next week back in North Carolina.
I believe Pete Crow Armstrong was there a couple times.
Yes. It is some of the best of the best. And out of that, they'll take some of those kids to make the 18U national team to go to Japan later this year and hopefully win gold again.
Yeah, I mean that's the plan is gold medal, and that's what this is all about. I try to explain to the parents that attend these events that there are colleges all over this place. I mean, they are looking for not only the people that are on their list, but the younger guys that they need to put on their list, and especially with the new recruitment changes that are happening in college, this is going to basically become a showcase. This is going to showcases are I think are going to dwindle because they won't be able to talk to them as much as they can when they get on campus for camps and things like that. So talk to us about that. What are your thoughts on that?
We talked about that last week at East Champs. We were talking about how the 16s, especially the 16U tournament, which is happening next week here in back east. It's actually happening right now back east, and then next week here in Phoenix. That age, because most of them will lead into that August offer date for junior year, which is now the new medium in NCAA. That's going to change that. That 16U event, I can only imagine next year what it's going to look like. It is going to be just
packed
with scouts. You're crazy if you don't come to that because it's that last chance before you're going to, with some kids, going to maybe offer them starting in August. So that's going to change the layout of how things work. I'm really fascinated to see. I think next year we'll really get an idea of what it looks like moving forward.
It's going to be great.
With that recruiting.
It's going to be amazing. And the 17 event though next year will be the last chance for those seniors that are going to be incoming seniors to really get that last look.
Get a late bloomer.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen a lot this week. It's pretty cool because you go to so many events and this kid's ranked. He's been ranked in this, or he's been committed since 8th grade.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of those kids committed to big schools, and you'll watch them by the time they're 16, 17, you're like, ooh, I don't know, man. This could be, kind of a futile thing for you. But then again, on the flip side of that, in this 17 event I'm doing right now, I'm seeing a lot of kids who they're not committed, they're not, and I'm going, wow, this is a diamond in the rough right here. Hopefully guys are here watching him because he's a late bloomer.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
He'd be a late pickup and surprise everybody.
Yeah, I think you see that too. We talked to a couple of kids from Tri-County, and they're a great team, and they have some guys. Most of them are committed, but some of these guys were like, yeah, I'm not committed, and I'm doing this and doing that, and now I'm talking to this coach, and they don't like. I truly feel that a lot of parents don't understand how important it is to showcase your kid at an event like this, rather than some tournament in the middle of Texas on a random weekend. Talk to us about how important it is for the USA events where these college coaches trust your opinion, right? You create that team. They're like, this is the list I want to see.
Right. And people can hate the process. That's okay. I mean, they have every right to. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, you got to go to this or you got to go to that. And that has become the process. You mentioned earlier going to like prospect camps. That has become a huge thing. I mean, Division I schools can save a bundle of money. The old school days of, hey, fly me out to your school and give me a weekend where you pay for this and that and we can talk to you.
Yeah.
Instead it's just like, hey, here's a prospect camp. Here's a prospect camp. Come to us. We don't have to spend any money on flying anybody out to watch you, flying you in, and we can get all the best teams in one spot to play in front of us, scout it like crazy, and we can get all we need. So between prospect camps and USA Baseball, bigger events that they're going to go to, there is, for the kid that's looking to make it, whether we like the process or not, that's kind of what we're trending towards, that you're getting to those bigger events. So I always tell our kids, when they're picking. I got tired of injuries in the summer, for instance,
For sure.
because we were doing a summer ball team.
You and your high school team.
My high school
Yeah.
team, correct. And then like USA events and perfect game events were popping up. And I knew those were going to be really high scouted. And I'm like, who am I to tell a kid not to go to that? And a couple things happened. One, it was pulling them in both directions. Because like, well, I don't want to let Coach Webb down. I want to play for the team. But now you're giving up maybe an opportunity where there's going to
Absolutely.
be a ton of scouts. And so who am I to say to keep the kid from that? And there was this constant pull. And don't even get me started on injuries because the kid never wants to let you down, right?
Yeah.
And so he's going to say, oh, I'm fine. I didn't throw that. I only threw one inning, and really he threw
3.
complete game. Yeah, right? And now he's hurt.
Yeah.
And so we stopped playing summer ball in our high school.
Yeah.
And instead, what we do is we try to get all of our kids and we say, hey, we're going to make sure you're on a club team. And when they ask for my advice, the number one thing I'll say is, is this just a moneymaker, number one, or is this one that's going to get you in front of
The right people.
the right eyes? And there's certain tournaments that are out there, and this is being the biggest of the big, in my opinion,
100%.
that if you come out here and you perform well in front of a lot of eyes, you're just upping your chances of maybe getting that offer, regardless of level, from JUCO all the way up. I just saw Central Arizona, who's a powerhouse here in the country in junior college. They're out there watching games all the way to some of the biggest schools in the country. So
No, absolutely. And what people, I think, don't realize, too, is these are invite-only events. Like, not any team can just show up here and be like, oh, yeah, well, like, me and 3 dads put this team together and we're gonna come do it. No, it's teams that have been here for a long time. It's the team, the establishment. It's the Blue Bloods. It's the Blue Bloods.
There is a lot of teams here, and a lot of them have been here. Gosh, I started, 98 was my first year with USA. And a lot of the same teams are still kind of rolling in here. So a lot of them have kind of gone the way of the dodo, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of them are still here, and you can count on them each year. They're going to bring kids that not only are going to present well for us, but colleges are going to have the benefit of seeing them in action against other good players.
Absolutely. What advice would you give to a parent that really doesn't understand the recruitment process at all?
I think it goes back to like what I just said about like knowing that the way in which colleges recruit, they want to make the best use of their time and dead periods, because there's so many different little dead periods where they can't go out.
Yeah.
And so just doing your homework and saying, am I playing for a club ball team that is, again, going to put me in front of the right eyes? I think that's super important, and that's a huge part of the game.
Yeah.
And I said that earlier, I know, but I think that's what I tell my parents, that make sure and come to me. Like I'll tell my high school kids, come to me and say and let me know the list of tournaments you're playing, because one of them might be, hey, just so you know, every D1 school and D2 school in the country is in a dead period in that. So you're going to go and you're going to get your ABs.
Yeah.
But if your goal is to get seen, that's not one you want to go to. But you know what? If you wait another week, and maybe it's not on that team, but you play on this team, then maybe you can get in front of the right eyes.
No,
and
absolutely.
See that. And then also the camp thing. I just spoke to a parent from Texas right before I came in here, and he was talking about, I just can't get my kid looked at and this and that. And I said, have you thought about, as he's going into his senior year next year, and he's going into that fall, of every level from JUCO on up, have your son pick a couple of prospect camps. And take the time to go to those prospect camps in the fall or late fall, because they'll all have them. You get in front of their eyes at their facility. You get to see what the school's like, and then they get their eyes on you. And I can't tell you how many kids we've had that have gone to that, and they're not all invite only.
Yeah.
And you just show in front of it. You show footwork. In
Absolutely.
the infield, you swing the bat well, and they might go, wow, that's a guy, and you'd be surprised how much that works out.
Well, especially for some of these schools, they're going to take a chance on you.
Yeah.
You show an interest. They're like, you might be free. Hey, you can afford the school. We don't have to spend any money on you. You're not a huge miss if you show up and like, oh, well, he didn't pan out, or heck, man, this kid actually did really well. He's a diamond in the rough, like you had mentioned earlier. I think parents, number one, have to be realistic. Mm-hmm. I feel like so many parents, it's D1 or bust, and that's just not the way it should be.
Right.
Right? There's so many. You talk about this kid from Texas. I guarantee there's D2s out here that would love to have him, but
Yes.
they hear D2 and oh my gosh,
That's
no,
nuts.
or D3, oh my God, no way.
There's D3s and NAIs that can beat some of the Division I schools in this
Absolutely,
country. Absolutely,
100%. I mean, some NAI schools are a bunch of D1 bounce backs or
They
guys
are.
that didn't get into D1.
100%.
So.
There's another aspect to it which is big, which we do a thing when they come in as freshmen at our high school. We talk about the importance of academics. That you picked a sport where we don't have. I think football gets 85. Is that full?
Yeah, 85 scholarship
full,
or 84 or whatever. Yeah, I think it's 85.
Like
I think it's
insane.
85.
Full rides.
Yeah.
And baseball gets 11.7. And you spread that out, and like in the COVID era, it went from no restrictions. Now it's at 40. You can have 40 on a roster. Yeah. Think about it in that way, that if your goal is, hey, I got to go Division I, that coach has got to make a decision between 40 kids that he can keep on his roster, and he's got 11.7 scholarships broken up into pieces that he's got to give it to. So,
and some schools aren't fully funded.
Exactly. And what helps you in that regard? Your grades.
Yeah.
Because the first thing that every Division I, Division II NCAA school asks me is, how are the grades? Because what they're asking, number one is, are they willing to work in the classroom because there's a reflection between the classroom and baseball field? That's one. And then two, is he going to help us get there with some academic money?
Yeah, absolutely. Pell grants,
exactly.
Other grants
or
other scholarships.
Beyond scholarships and such, because the school may say, hey, this guy's from a 3.5 up, we can afford to, for each one of those tenths of GPA, we can give you another $2,000 in scholarship academic, and now baseball can come in and give you a 25-30%, and we can make this manageable.
Absolutely.
You make it so much easier on it, and you hamstring yourself. If starting as a freshman, that's when it always happens. Freshman to sophomore, you tank and then try to pick it up, and you're rolling in with a 2.8, 3.0 because you slacked off those first few years. You can't meet in the middle. So grades are big in that too, on all regards, I think, and that's at most levels.
Well, they're huge in my opinion as a coach, and we tell our guys, like, you're an investment, right? And if you can show that you're a safe stock, you're a safe bet, we're going to invest in you.
Yep.
But you know what? You might be throwing 95, and you know what? We're going to take you. You have a 2.5. We'll figure it out.
Right.
But you know what? It's always that 3.5 guy that, you know what? He's a safe bet. We don't have to worry about his grades in the classroom. It really tailors it for those coaches to, put that extra effort in investing in you.
And you know as well as I mean, even in high school, when you got that kid who's really diligent in the classroom, you're like, okay, this is what we got to work on the athletic side of it, and I can just not just bear down on him here. That it becomes a hassle. It becomes worrisome. When you got that kid who's always fluctuating, you're trying to make lineups and you don't know he's going to make it. It is like you said, it's up in your stock on so many levels, whether on your high school team or with the way it looks to colleges who might be interested in you.
To move back to advice and helping these kids understand the process, what's the best advice you could give a 14-year-old or a 12-year-old that not only wants to one day maybe be Team USA, but also wants to play college baseball?
Well, I think, the sixth tool is defined in so many different ways. The 5 tools of baseball plus that sixth one. Mental acumen, heart, character, I think they're all wrapped up in that sixth tool. And it's amazing if you focus on that, how much that can kind of help you along the way. It's something that really, I think, is overlooked. I do. And I think if we focus more on that part, I think, is what's going to help you really the most moving forward.
Yeah, separate.
Really do. You separate you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think you're absolutely right. It has to give people the hustle. It's the little things. It is the little things. It's things that people wouldn't notice unless you separated yourself doing it, right? If everyone's just jogging out, but you're sprinting out, like, oh, we noticed that guy's hustling.
Exactly. And out here it's hot. I mean, it's a mildly hot, believe it or not.
This is the best weather I've ever been.
With 100, 101, and some of these teams, it's just like the heat is getting to them, and right or wrong, if you're not in heat stroke mode and you're just like, I can't really handle this. I mean, some of the places around the country, whether it's humidity, whether it's,
adversity.
Adversity, you're going to run into that. And there's a little bit of adversity right now just because of the heat. And we want to see that in these guys out here, and I guarantee you colleges do too. Kids that are dogging it on the field, and they're noticing the last guy on, last guy in the dugout every single inning, and those little things do matter. And I know that every coach tries to preach that, but it's just amazing small percentage of kids that take it as the gospel and really act on it, because it's big. Like, you think on the USA thing, one of the biggest things I look for on every single team is on that character side, because remember, you're going out there as USA and you're going to a foreign country, and all these kids are really young. I've taken as young as 12-year-olds, and you're taking them to Taiwan, and they don't just represent their city, they don't just represent their state, they represent their country, and it's across their chest. You can't get away with it. It's on all your practice gear, it's on your hats, no matter where you walk. There's USA. You were a billboard for it, and your character is just on all the time. You got to really realize that. So we remind them of that, and that's just such a great lesson. If it's not USA, it's the same thing when you're going to college.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're constantly under a spotlight.
We talked to Jack Wilson, and he's been part of USA for years. His son played for Team USA. He talked, it's not the best 20, it's the right 20.
Right, exactly.
Talk about that. Talk about that philosophy, because USA has kind of taken that and ran with it, because that's the right way everyone should do it, right?
Yeah, I've got to know Jack a little bit. Jack coaches. My son plays at Grand Canyon University, and one of his best friends, Jacob Wilson.
We had Jacob Wilson on the show and Jack on the show, and both outstanding.
My son was watching their house and picking up their mail in the last 2 weeks. So that's his claim to fame. But I think like Jack said, I've heard that said, but we kind of not dumb it down, but we kind of minimize it in high school to it's either the best, 16, not the 16 best players, but the best 16, or it's not the 18 best, the same thing. And those are those 6 tool things. Those are those things that when it comes down to it, you got somebody who may do one thing right on the field out of all the tools, but you're going to need that. Yeah. That's so important. And we teach that when kids first come in, because when kids first come in, we tell them, know who you are. You're a little guy, and you're going to a guy that's trying to get you to drop and drive, Danny drop and drive over there at 5'2", 110.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're not putting yourself in the best position. And just know that at your size, we need you, but we need you to be you.
Yeah.
And especially like at that high school level, a lot of kids who might be listening to this are saying, well, maybe I don't fit that mold of hitting the ball out, but how do I run the bases? How do I do that? And what good coaches will find out is those guys fit into their formula of how to win games, and it doesn't always translate to what's sadly only being seen at the highest level, which is the long ball.
Yeah.
You win in so many different ways in those youth levels through high school and even into college. LSU bunted their 4-hole guy yesterday in the College World Series. Amazing. So, all those little things along the way are important. And I don't want guys that are smaller, thinner, whatever, discounted because they don't fit the mold of what they think is perfect. You can get, the guys that fit into that formula of winning baseball games, and they come in all shapes and sizes and with all different talents, and they can win.
You're absolutely right. Being you, understanding who you are. And I think social media hurts some kids with that, because
100%.
They are watching Max Clark hit a home run 500 feet, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's what's going to get me viral, or that's what's going to separate me. And it's really like, I had a kid, this last year that offensively he was okay, but he was the fastest kid in the league, and he could bunt for a hit almost every time.
Right.
And it's like, hey man, anytime they're going to give you that, you should take it.
Yes.
Why would you not bat 500 with 30 bunts? I guarantee you'll be okay.
I get kids like that all the time, and they tend to go on. They kind of, as they roll through our program, they kind of figure it out. But early on, it's like pulling teeth. I'm like, do you see the tools that you're not playing to your tools right now?
Yeah.
You're playing to what someone tells you your tools need to be, and play to those strengths. And those things change. That's the best thing about coaching high school. Kids that, they come in at 5'2" and leave at 6'2" sometimes. Yeah. They've never met the weight room before. Puberty hits. The changes that can go through, that someone can go through. And I encourage kids to, we always want to be looking forward and growth-minded people, but don't forget to check the rearview mirror, because so many of those big kids who, at 12 and 13 years old, who just matured quicker. A
peter
lot
out.
of them think they got it figured out.
Yeah.
And so they stop working. And you got to realize that, hey, the great equalizer you get in the weight room.
Absolutely.
And then puberty, the other great equalizer. All of a sudden, that guy better be checking his rearview mirror, because here you come. That kid who you didn't know who he was in 7th and 8th grade, he keeps plugging, he's going to be there.
We preach at our program and on the podcast and everything, strength is the biggest separator.
Yeah,
if you work out and you get stronger, it doesn't matter your size. You're going to separate yourself.
Yeah, it's a strong man's game now, whether you want to, things change.
Absolutely.
You can complain about it, or, you can make your way through it in the best way possible. And strength is huge. I mean, you have college teams that lift routinely on game days.
Yeah.
I played college baseball in the 90s, and that was like, no way you were going to do that. And now it's like regular. It's just like the weight room is a must. And the sooner you can get them going on that in high school, that's another thing I would tell kids.
Absolutely.
And that's a separator in itself.
For sure. It's a mindset. And it builds team bonding. It's just such an amazing thing when that program buys into the weight room, because
100%.
There's still old school coaches that, just like you said, don't believe in the weight room, or like, we're not lifting on game days, or we're not lifting, during spring or
Right.
whatever it may be. And I feel like that's just such a mistake, because
it's a mistake too, because you're not aware of what's really going to happen when they go to college, because there is not a college program in this country at any level who doesn't lift like maniacs.
Yeah.
There's just not.
Yeah.
So
doesn't matter the level.
Keeping a kid back.
Yeah.
If you're not preparing them for what they could be. You can have your feelings on it, but you're holding a kid back if you don't talk to them about nutrition and strength and getting ready, because those things are coming if that is their goal and you don't promote that. So
yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
important.
100%. And some parents are scared, oh, my kid's, he's not strong enough to lift, and it's like, he'll be okay.
Right.
Just
exactly.
the first couple weeks he's gonna be sore, and that's okay.
It's okay.
You're not injured, you're sore.
Right.
You'll be fine. A little lactic acid buildup.
Well, my son in 7th and 8th grade, it was just all body weight stuff and things that were, working with bands, working with like, what are they, TRX, the straps
Absolutely.
or whatever and stuff. It was mostly that. And then as he rolled in his freshman year, more weights. And the cool thing was, as much as I kept telling it, he himself fell in love with
Absolutely.
weight, and he still loves lifting, and he got really physical, and it really changed him as a baseball player throughout high school, and about his own self-worth.
Absolutely.
That wasn't even baseball side, that was lifting. That was a huge benefit, not just how it helped him on the field, that people also should be preaching, because if college is their goal, that's a big thing too.
That's what you see in California. You see the private schools, Mission League, Trinity League, Jay Sarah's, Harvard Westlake's, those guys, big in the weight room, right?
Yes.
The public schools that do lift, big in the weight room, they're very successful.
Right.
It's the teams that don't lift and don't do things, they're just middle of the road. They average out, they peter out, and yeah, they might have a kid, one or two that play at the next level, but it's really tough for a majority of those kids to be successful later on.
Exactly.
I want to now talk about Arizona baseball.
Okay.
Right? I mean, you've been a high school coach for 17 years.
Right.
You've won everything. You've done everything. We're from California, and I'm a big. When I think Arizona high school baseball, I think Chandler. Mm-hmm. I think Hamilton.
Yep.
I think now Basha.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the high school landscape, and there's so much talent out here as well.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I think we're about 5 miles from Hamilton, so we play them every year.
Yeah.
At all levels, there's really competitive teams, but predominantly, I would say 5A, 6A, mostly 6A in that South Chandler area where we're at. We're in South Tempe. We're half in South Tempe, half in Chandler, and then that whole area out there is just. It's going on probably about 25, 30 years of growth, just growth explosion. And there's something about the baseball in that area, and kind of out in this area too. It's like the opposite corners, the extreme northwestern corner out here.
Yeah.
Scottsdale's also tough in the northeast, and then drop down to Southeast Valley down there. And there is just so many good teams down there. And I just think everybody does it a little different on how much they play and how they go about it. But the weather definitely helps.
Absolutely.
The weather definitely helps. And the competition level, baseball's become really, really strong in Arizona. It has.
Now 6A is obviously the highest. It's the Division I for in California. It's
Correct.
opposite.
Correct.
Are you seeing the influx of California families coming into, because Phoenix has absolutely blown up. Chandler's blown
Yes.
up with people moving into that state or into Arizona. Are you seeing the effects now, or do you think it's going to be later on we're going to see that?
We definitely hear about it for sure. We're hearing about tons of people from California, whether it be for cost of living things or politics.
Absolutely,
that there's a lot of people coming to Arizona from California. I'd heard my next door neighbor had told me that I think it was four families in the last year have moved into our neighborhood. We're kind of a close knit community, and just from California. So definitely is happening. We haven't seen any in our program, nor have I seen it like at a Hamilton or anything that I've really noticed. It doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Sure.
That I've really noticed in the baseball landscape as much yet, but definitely in that area, we're getting pretty large influx, what we're hearing right now.
That's great. I mean, I think that's going to, boost the baseball as well. And,
exactly.
And not only that, it's these programs have great facilities.
They do.
And just, we don't hear about it though. We hear about the J. Sarah. We hear about the Harvard Westlake, Notre Dame.
Yeah.
The school IMG academies and things like that. But every year, a Arizona school goes to North Carolina for that tournament.
Exactly.
And competes extremely well.
Right. Right. So, it's the competition has upped so much. I think also very solid club teams have gone out and I think gone out of their comfort zone just playing in Arizona and played other places. And they've been found by USA Baseball too, because there's been a lot of kids that have over the years played for USA Baseball too and come back and say, wow, that's a good conduit to me getting seen and then going down the line and maybe playing college and professional baseball. And it's just up the ante. And high school baseball here is phenomenal. This past year, we had J. Sarah in. We had Orange Lutheran in. We had a team, Hoover High School from Alabama came in. Bishop Verrat from Florida came in. And we played this huge super tournament. And, man, was it fun. But it was
That's
loaded.
What it's about. Yeah.
And we're going to do it next year in California, I think.
That's going to be great.
But, and the Arizona teams, it's back and forth. It's not, we go in there just to get beat up by these guys. We're hanging in there, and it's a battle royale between all those states. So many good programs.
No, 100%. And, it's just, you see it on the PBRs and the perfect game list. You got these guys from Hamilton and these schools all over the place. But I just feel like sometimes they don't get the notoriety because they're not California or Florida or Texas or whatever it may be. But there's some great baseball out here. And there's some great teams in this tournament that are from Arizona. So it's really fun to watch.
The depth in all of those states you mentioned is the big difference. What I've learned with USA Baseball is growing up, I'm like, do they even play baseball in Minnesota, Wisconsin? And they do, because I'm telling you, one thing USA Baseball has taught me is maybe they don't have the depth of teams and players, but there are dudes in every state.
Absolutely.
And I have learned that. And if you watch the draft and you watch really specifically where players are coming from, there's a ton coming from California, but then you'll see a guy from Jersey, Michigan, and there's baseball. And baseball in America, I feel, is in a really good state of play right now, and it's all over. It really is. There's a team here from Minnesota that's really, really good. And I'm thinking like a kid right now that these kids are going, we're playing that Minnesota team, and they just get their clock cleaned. Because that team is tough.
But that's why you come out here, right? To play the best.
Yep.
And that's exciting. I'm excited. I want to see them now. Now that you told me that, I want to see them.
They're a tough team.
So, we call it the last 3 outs.
Okay.
3 questions. They're the hardest ones you're going to get.
Oh, boy.
All right. Favorite food?
Favorite food? I'd have to go, even though I'm a little bit gluten, let's just call it intolerant. I love pizza.
Pizza's great.
I love pizza.
Favorite movie?
Oh, geez, Forrest Gump. I teach pop culture, so I'm talking about my favorite movie all the time.
There
I
it
love
is. Yeah.
everything about Forrest Gump.
So you're a Dr. Pepper
Genius.
fan, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, I love Dr. Pepper. Yeah, I do.
Favorite baseball player? Alive, dead?
Growing up, I was a huge Ted Williams guy. And a lot of that had to do with just his background of selflessness, taking off time to go serve in 2 different wars to go be he wasn't taking time off to be a clerk. He took time off to go be a pilot.
Fighter pilot.
Yeah, right? And
in action too, not
Yeah.
like just like, hey, I'm here for the photos. Like,
Exactly. And I think he probably would own if he played all those years, he might own every record. It could be that. I would say definitely modern day. I was a little brokenhearted in the tower today. These kids were talking a little bit, and I didn't open up his mouth. I'm a big Mike Trout fan. I really am a big Mike Trout fan, and I love how people are doubting him these days. All of a sudden, a lot of people are.
I know he has one tough month, and people
Exactly.
are like, "Oh my God!"
Sorry, he spent time with his family and wasn't exactly just rip roaring ready for the World Baseball Classic and didn't blow your doors off, But I love the way he goes about his business.
Absolutely.
I love the way he handles himself. I love everything about him. He's always, he's a guy that I can take my players and just go, hey, you might not work like this in your swing or whatever, but watch the way he handles himself and plays. And that's when it all comes down to it. That's what I'm paying attention to anymore as a high school coach and leader.
Coach, amazing leader you are, amazing winner. We're so excited to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here. I know you're super swamped. You're doing everything this week, with this task force, but truly thank you so much for taking the time to hang with us.
Absolutely, absolute pleasure, and I love what you guys are doing. I think it's a huge need in the youth community today. This is the Baseball Playground. Like, follow, and subscribe.